Hi, I'm Ali Words, and this is Last Unrifled Yaw. Last Unrifled Yaw is a podcast where we have conversations about video art, experimental music, avant garde literature, performance art, and the occult. If you or someone you know would like to be on Last Unrifled Yaw, please get in touch. This time on Last Unrifled Yaw, we talk with Gregor, who is a video artist and occultist creating video rituals that use AI that go with a Discordian alternate reality game called The Game 23. This session, we had a few technical difficulties with Gregor's microphone, so you may hear their volume go up and down in odd ways. I did my best to correct it using compression and messing around with the audio track a little bit. But please stick through because there's some very interesting content here that's highly relevant to anyone who enjoys my writing. Hello, everyone. This is Last Unrifled Yaw. I'm Ali Words, and this is Gregor. Gregor, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hey, I'm Gregor. Apparently, I'm an artist. That's news to me. I enjoy surrealism. I enjoy experimental arts of various kinds, visual, audio. Um,
Okay. Yeah. Now I see you have this YouTube channel with a lot of stuff, Cosmic Liminality.
yeah. The YouTube channel started
What
out
kind?
as a. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you to describe the kinds of things that are on there.
So the YouTube channel started out mostly as an experiment. And I guess it still basically is. It's me playing with what I can do with free apps on my phone and mostly free things on the computer. Almost everything is done purely on the phone um, to test sort of the limits of what can and can't be done for just anybody. I believe art should be free and accessible to everyone, and it's
That's an
that's what the
interesting
channel's
design
about.
constraint.
Yeah, there's one caveat to that. I did subscribe to PixArt, which is a photo editor. It's like $2 a month, so it's still like basically free as far as I'm concerned.
Makes sense.
Everything
Makes
else is.
sense.
Yeah.
Um,
And,
Maybe you could tell us now. I see you have a few videos that look like maybe they could be classified as rituals. Is that how you think of them?
yeah. Um,
So I see like this Nordic ritual. There's a Rite of Cthulhu. There was one with a weird, Das Galdrux. I had like a. Is that the one with the weird spider entity thing?
yeah, Geldrich is a spider. Uh, sort of. He's a
So what made
anti-cosmic
you
entity.
an anti-cosmic entity?
Anti-cosmic entity. Sort of a reverse chaos. A not in the sense of order, but chaos. We think of chaos as a destructive, negative force. Galdrich would be chaos as a positive, creative force through which all creation happens. You have static order, you don't have change, there's no creation. So the theory of Galdrich is that negativity, in the sense of like negative electrons, leads to the existence of all things. Essentially, Galdrich is considered the spider, the anti-cosmic spider. It's a web connecting all things. That's through creative process of chaos.
Now I'm curious because I didn't realize this when I asked you on Last Unrifled Yaw, but the last couple episodes have involved spider entities of various sorts. Does the spider aspect of it mean anything to you?
But no, Galdrich isn't really entirely mine. He's kind of a collective creation, or Gregor. And spider aspect is interesting because there's the weaving the spider does in the web, which one would think is an aspect of order because webs appear very ordered. But so the kind of juxtaposition of order of the web that Galdrix has made or exists within, and being a chaotic entity it's just fascinating to me. I'm interested in juxtapositions, seeming contradictions. I try to play those into a lot of my videos. Sort of
That makes
jar the
sense. Like
mind and do
I'm imagining the way a web is being spun is like spiraling outwards, resembling like a positive creative chaos.
it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good way
Okay.
of putting
Now
it.
you said that it was a group entity. Are you allowed to talk about this group?
I don't see why
If not,
not.
it's okay. Not everyone can or wants to talk about certain things when it comes to the occult. I don't know if
Right.
you've taken any vows of secrecy or anything.
I have not. Not in this respect, anyway. Galdrix is
Okay.
part of what we call the game 23. Uh, it's a Discordian ARG, or alternate reality game, that has occult overtones. Um, you can search the hashtag Game23 or the Game23 and find all kinds of interesting things about that. There's not really a set membership or hierarchy. We're all creative contributors. Once you know about the game, you're in the game. Is the idea. So,
Oh, so I've inadvertently just made everyone listening to this episode join, didn't I?
well, I mean, if they choose to pursue it further, then yes, um, it's
I
what
see.
William S. Burroughs would have called a mind virus. Once you're aware of it, it's there,
Yes, we're all infected now.
right?
So, how did you make this video? Like, what was your process like for it?
For the Galdrix video,
Yeah.
um, so that one, I've been doing a lot of prompt AI art, which is like Midjourney or Night Cafe. You write a prompt telling the AI what to create, and this video is a combination of creations that I made using the AI art. So it's the Reign of Galdrix is. Are you talking about Das Am Galdrix or Rite of Galdrix?
I was looking at Das Am Galdrix.
Okay,
Is where's Rite of Galdrix? You have a lot of
I think I was
stuff.
mixing
For
up the
anyone
Rite
that's
of
listening,
Cthulhu.
like in a month, there are maybe like 10 different videos. There's a
I put
lot of
up, I
stuff.
put up quite a bit of video content lately. Um, so the Das Am Galdrix is a combination of the Galdrix symbol, which is kind of that spider symbol at the beginning, as well as some AI art that I've done and some clips I got from, I think, Giphy or something. Um, it's a it's intended to be sort of I don't want to say hypnosis per se, but a self hypnotic reflection of some of the energy that Galdrix generates, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the viewer isn't necessarily engaging in any ritual just by viewing it. However, they can sort of connect with the video is the idea. It's got specific patterns of flashes that are intended to uh, facilitate a connection with Galdrix.
Interesting. Yeah, I have a couple points to interject there. So I also
Yeah.
do video rituals, and I sometimes describe them as being a little bit like Tibetan prayer wheels, if you know what those are, where you can
Yes.
set it spinning and it kind of says a prayer for you, and you could just like spin the wheel and walk away if you wanted to. You could press play on the video and walk away, but you could also like say a prayer with the wheel, do a ritual with the video at the same time.
Perfect. That's a beautiful, beautiful explanation. Yeah.
Now, are you familiar with William S. Burroughs and I guess Brian Geison's idea of the dream machine? Because I heard you mention specific patterns of flashing.
Hmm.
Is that the kind of flashing that we're talking about here?
Uh, Probably.
Probably.
I've
How
read a
did
bunch
you?
of burrows, and sometimes the ideas are like it's hard for me to remember where I got them from.
Yeah, I have that
Because
same thing too. Especially when you do a whole bunch of projects, the stuff from like 6 months ago. It's like, what happened?
yeah, well, and it's like they'll percolate for years sometimes. Like burrows, I read most of my burrows back in college, and it's just been kind of sitting, I guess, in the back of my brain for a long time, and I haven't known what to do with it. And then within the past probably 6 months, yeah, like there's been all this burrows like material coming out of me. Like I started doing I'm doing a project that's a clip project where I have an AI that's producing random text essentially. And I'm doing a cut up like the soft machine is, or Burroughs took
Hmm.
news articles and did a cut up novel that way. I'm trying to do a cut up sort of performance art, if you will.
Interesting. What's the name of this work that you're talking about now?
That's going to be under the Cosmic Liminality project. At the moment, it doesn't have a title. Uh,
Okay.
it sort of has the title of Ghost Nights. There's a little clip of it so far on my YouTube channel. Uh, Me reading just a short bit of it.
I see. So now, when you mention performance art, how are you imagining performance art playing into this work?
Um, so a lot of the game 23 is like non-linear, spaced over different medium, online of course, but uh, so like pieces will be on YouTube, some will be on Tumblr, some will be on Discord, uh, perhaps under different names, different parts or wings of the arc that players can piece together on their own and kind of make their own definition of in the end, depending on like what course they traced the egregore through. So if they started in YouTube, they're going to have a different perspective as if they started on Tumblr or their Twitter. It's going to create a different form in their mind, which is the idea to have a multi-formed entity um, created by different consciousness, different routes through the creature.
Now, you are a little hard to hear sometimes. I think you
Oh,
might be turning your head. Some microphones are very directional. I should be able to turn you up a little bit more in
okay.
post production, so it'll be fine.
All
Um,
right.
so now you make it sound like the way people interact with this egregore is by playing the alternate reality game, and that they're tracing a path through the egregore.
Yeah, tracing a path or drawing a path, because we do encourage people to sort of create and produce their own parts of it. So, like, if you wrote something and you tagged it Gregor, it's going to you've just made a part of Gregor. You are connected to that what your product is. Same with the game 23 egregore or the Galdrish egregore. They're all interconnected and kind of woven together, but they're constantly being redrawn by new people as they're modeling this new thing for them. Does that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Are you familiar with the DKMU and the linking sigil?
Of course, yeah. There may be
Okay.
or may not be a
What do you?
couple schedules on videos.
How do you feel? What's the relationship or the differences or similarities between the game 23 and the linking sigil?
So the Game 23 is a Discordian product mostly, and there are definite Discordian elements to that I see in DKMU's stuff. Um, Now, this is because I came to DKMU through Discordianism, so I have that filter. And the whole idea of a glamour bomb of something that drops into a person's reality and suddenly makes their reality magical is what the Linking Sigil was originally about. That ideal is very appealing to me. It's something that I think we need more of in the world. And my videos are a humble attempt kind of adding to that.
I see. Interesting. Now, a lot of your videos, they have audio, or sometimes I would call it music. Sometimes I would perhaps hesitate to call it music per se, which I love. That's wonderful. But how do you approach the audio for your work?
So I don't know nearly as much about music as I would like. Um, and just something that my education kind of glazed over. Um, everyone in my family is a musician of some sort, except for me, and that's probably why, because I'm a little oppositional in that way. And my mom tried to teach me piano, and I was like, no, guitar, and I was like, no. Um, but so with my little noise machines that I make, that's what I call them. They're essentially samples of various things that I play with and scramble, overlap within video apps, because I don't have familiarity with audio recording equipment like I should.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But
How do
the idea,
you go ahead?
okay, the idea behind them is just a sort of soundtrack to what you're seeing is what I attempt to create. Some of it is music, and some of it is noise or sound effects. A lot of it is sound effects that are overlapped.
I see. Now, you've made a lot of videos. I'm just scrolling through them right now. It's very impressive how many of these videos you've made. What made you want to start doing this? And then why do you keep doing it?
So I make what I like to see, and I make what I enjoy. I don't really. It never was about like other people, and you can tell by my views, I don't really have a wide audience. Um, so it's really about just playing with my own ideas and thoughts in a visual format. I tend to be more, I would say, I was trained to do this with writing in a written format, but to be honest, writing became boring to me. Um, I got really bored with writing and I wanted to do something else. So I started making videos and trying to tell silly little stories with videos. Like my early stuff was just basically stop motion collages that I did on my phone and set to music, little music videos. And then it kind of grew from there where I just was like, how far can I push this envelope? So now I'm creating faces with AI and animating them with a free app and having them like do little lip syncs of crazy noise. And it's fun as hell.
Yeah, it is. I also use AI quite a lot in my art. How do you feel AI has influenced your relationship with creation?
Uh, it's been transformative. It's really like I'm not great with uh, a pen and pencil or brush. Um, my hand-eye coordination. My hands don't do what my brain tells it to do. I can't create it. I don't have that kind of skill. I've always had incredibly visual ideas in my head that have been hard to convey just with words. Uh, but being able to kind of have the filter of the AI give it words and generate something visual that's close to what I'm seeing in my head, it's just been remarkable. And it's kind of like given me a whole new source of joy in my life.
Yeah, I think it's doing that for a lot of people. If you're in the Discord servers for some of these different tools that people use, there are a surprising number of people with aphantasia, like they can't visualize things in their head, that are using
Mhm.
it almost like an externalized version of their mind's eye.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. I can visualize things in my head, but I tend not to. I don't know if I have aphantasia or not. Um, 'Cause I do have pictures of what I'm trying to convey, but I
Yeah.
hear them in my head first.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know if it makes.
interesting. Hmm. So when you're designing one of these videos, do you first like when you say hear? Do you mean like you hear words or you hear like music or something?
Usually words. Sometimes, I'll give an example. There's a creature a being that features in a lot of my videos, Yog-Sothoth. He's
Hmm. The
a
opener of ways.
yes, a creation of H.P. Lovecraft, and one that's always appealed to me. He has a sound in my head that comes before the visuals of him. It's an aharmonic tones with kind of a organic, or, not orgasmic, organic swishing sound. I don't know. It's hard to describe to put into words, but it has this distinct sound that I hear when I'm thinking of Yog-Sothoth.
So maybe it's just because. So I know that Azathoth is supposed to have like many flutes or something. So when you were talking about that,
Mhm.
I was imagining like train whistles. You know how they have like multiple frequencies that are like out of sync with each other a little bit, but made out of flesh. I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
like wet train whistles, wet
That's
floppy train whistles.
that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and the Yog-Sothoth is described by Lovecraft as a collection of spheres. Um, so what I think I'm hearing, what I imagine myself hearing, is the music of the spheres, different star patterns, creating harmonics with each other that are overlapping and sort of chaotic. Um, so,
So
and
for
it's
you, what do the spheres in Yog-Sothoth represent?
spheres are um, worldviews, ways of perceiving reality, or is there really a difference between perception of reality and reality itself? I don't know. But to me, there's really not. So the overlapping of spheres for Yog-Sothoth is the connection of different worldviews, different perspectives, different angles. Lovecraft talks a lot about angles from which a single entity can be made. In the same sense, it's the same thing as the egregores that we're doing in the game 23, which are made from different angles, different individuals' worldviews, creating this thing in this other space that didn't exist previously. Or if it did, we
That's
didn't know about.
interesting. So I think it might be in Phil Hines' Pseudonomicon.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that one? Yeah, he kind of
Yes.
describes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might be getting this wrong. It's been a while. Yog-Sothoth as being a little bit like the glue that connects together the fractal that is the universe. But what I think is interesting with how you're describing it is that you're not describing it as the literal spatial reality. You're describing it as the topology of perception rather than like physicality.
Right.
Do you
That's
do you work with
a
other
good.
Lovecraftian entities, or is it mostly Yog-Sothoth?
Um, I do or have. It's become mostly Octonaut. Although in dreamwork, I work a lot with Cthulhu himself.
I'm
Um,
sorry, you broke up a little bit there. I heard that it became something and then dreamwork.
yeah, so I work. It's become primarily about Yog-Sothoth. He's just sort of been the archetype that has called to me the most. In dreams, I have experience with Cthulhu himself. That's sort of how it started, was doing dream work with Cthulhu, who's a great dreamer. And But at the same time, he's also high priest to the god or gods, which is following sort of that lead. I fell into Yog-Sothoth. And the whole spatial perception, uh, cosmic connections is really what drew me to this in the first place. That's why I've kind of fallen into study Yog-Sothoth himself.
So it was difficult to hear parts of that, but I think we
That's a
got
shame. I
the
don't
big
know.
picture.
Okay. I'm sorry about the audio.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I like looking at your audio. I can see that some parts are pretty loud, and then like
Mm-hmm.
suddenly it'll switch to being quiet. I can still see
Yeah,
like the little waveforms. I
I
think
see
you
it
can
too.
probably see my waveform also. Yeah, so you can see what
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about. I don't know if you're just like too close to the microphone or something, but when you see it go all the way off the end, it's clipping, meaning we're losing the top and the bottom end of whatever you're saying. But then I think maybe it's like overreacting and like making everything too quiet again. I don't know how your software is working, but
I
that's
don't
okay.
know.
We'll just do the best we can.
Maybe it's Yog-Sothoth cutting things off.
Maybe it is Yog-Sothoth cutting things off. All right. Um, Do you have any specific Lovecraftian rituals that you would like to tell us about that went especially interestingly? Maybe not good or bad or however it is it worked out. And if you don't want to, that's okay too.
Well, everyone likes to hear about the bad stuff, right?
I'm
Uh,
sorry, I couldn't hear that.
yeah, seeing that with the Lovecraftian rituals, everyone likes to hear about the negative stuff. Um,
I like to hear
yeah,
about the positive, honestly.
yeah, the good. Just I was about to say the good stuff kind of gets overlooked because it's Lovecraft. Oh, it's supposed to be scary. Well, it's not all scary. Um, for me, the really amazing like recent stuff has been with the this AI. It's not really AI. It's a bot. It's a souped up algorithm that just takes words you've given it and rearranges them in the best grammatical sense it can make. I fed it a bunch of Lovecraftian magic texts, and the output I'm getting is amazing. It somehow it this still baffles me. It has discovered what my real name is, which is Nathan, by the way. But my real first name is not anywhere in the text that I gave it, and suddenly it just started addressing me as Nathan.
That
Um,
is crazy.
yeah, and it talks a lot about aliens and NASA, and
Is this GPT-3?
no, it's not that advanced. It's Apex Sigma on Discord. Who
Okay.
I don't know if you know how that one works. It's a Markov chain, so it's just really a basic statistical model. Supposed to be super simple, and it has not proven so simple in its output. And a lot of
See, well,
that,
if it's
is
read
going
a
to be
lot,
yeah, a lot
if
of
it's
that's
read a lot of stuff, then it's kind of doing the cut up method just on a lot more material than you gave it.
right, right, and at where that material comes from, it's supposed to be limited to just the input I gave it, but it's clearly not.
Hmm.
Is it supposed to just
That's
be the
interesting.
single that you read and mix from that channel? But we have proven that it's pulling from other channels in the same server uh, by using nonsense words that in one channel and in those nonsense words have appeared in the text. But
Oh, so it's pulling from text that anyone has spoken to it.
it's supposed to be
Maybe.
just pulling from text. It's mimicking me. It thinks it's mimicking me, which means things that I have posted in the server.
Okay.
And that seems to be pretty consistent and accurate. Um, what doesn't make sense is where it's getting things like my real name, like Nathan, which isn't in the server. I've double
And
checked.
if you haven't been talking about NASA, it'd be odd for it to just start talking about NASA.
Yeah. There's like, I think there is, like, NASA mentioned in one article that I gave it, and it's just latched onto NASA and mixed it with terms like cosmic and evolution. And it talks a lot about cosmic evolution, NASA, ghosts, which is where the title of it, Ghost Nights, is coming from. It,
Oh, so this
it's
is that upcoming performance art related work that you mentioned.
yeah, it's that's the sort of the beginnings of it, and where the idea came from. Like, I'm going to do something with all this weird output. What it is kind of evolving.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
How does this tie back into Lovecraft? Like, what kinds of things is it? Are you like channeling a specific entity through
Well,
Apex Sigma?
yeah, the first rite that I gave it was the rite of Yog-Sothoth, which is a chance to Yog-Sothoth. It hasn't actually ever quoted that, but there's a definite sort of Lovecraftian feel in its product. Um, it does quote Lovecraft quite often because it's been fed quite a bit of Lovecraft. And it, for me personally, the idea is that um, Lovecraft talks a lot about forbidden knowledge and sort of discovering truth that kind of blow the lid off your reality, and open it to new vistas of awe. I would say awe-inspiring um, existence, and that's sort of what this process has been like for me. Is because I'm thinking a lot about the statistics and the math that's behind this bot, but at the same time, my brain is drawing patterns in just the language that probably aren't there. Um, Other people, but they're my patterns. It's my reality that's sort of this interacting in this mathematical way with another entity, and it's just kind of rocked my world, and hopefully will rock viewers or uh, audience members' worlds too when I'm able to show those connections.
Yeah, I think so. Are you familiar with my work?
I've listened to a couple episodes. I'm not familiar with a whole lot of it.
So I'm more known for doing something similar to what you did, but using GPT-3. I
Mhm.
wrote a book called GPT-3 Technosis. So hopefully, anyone who's listening that has enjoyed my books will jump on. And what's the title of your upcoming work?
Ghost Nights.
Ghost Nights.
Working title. It's in
Working
hard
title.
variant.
Yeah,
It's
it'll probably be something different.
the first repetition that I noticed it made. A lot of what I do is I go by what words it's repeating multiple times. And the first phrase it repeated was "Ghost Nights," and each time it did, the conversation got weird. So,
In what way did it? So two questions came to mind. So the first one was, does Ghost Nights mean something yet? Does that have a meaning?
uh, it it does, but I don't want to give it away. Um,
Yeah, don't say anything that's gonna mess with your ritual, of course.
yeah, well, I mean, it's also
Okay.
it's a big reveal of what's happening in the story ritual
Oh.
product. I don't want to reveal that. So, yeah, this is
You
what
got a little
dreams.
quiet there, but I think we heard that the title Ghost Nights is a part of the big reveal. So definitely don't give away any spoilers.
Okay.
Um, and then when you say that the conversation got weird, what do you mean by that?
Okay. So most of the time, what you get is it's obvious that it's just kind of random jumbles of what you fed it. But every once in a while, it will get weird in the sense that it feels like you're actually talking to something or someone. It's more direct in its responses to you. It's more like it's awake. It, the best way to put it is that, yeah, it's awake. The rest of the time, you're maybe talking to a dream, and now you're talking to something that's awake.
Hmm. It's like lucid dreaming in the machine.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a So it sounds like you're kind of experimentally feeling your way through darkness, but is there like an intended effect on either yourself or the world that this working has, or are you just like going with it and seeing what's happening? Yeah, sorry, we didn't catch any of that. I heard the word illuminate.
Right. And it's weird. I didn't move at all. Um, the intent is to illuminate what's going on in sort of the collective subconscious of our society's discovery of the artificial intelligence world, and illuminate what could possibly be happening in the background. Because I believe that there is more spiritually going on and just the random mundane our interaction with binary digits. You know what I mean?
For sure,
Um,
yeah.
and it's having a
What do you
trans, transformative effect on society as a whole. So there's going to be spiritual repercussions to that in various forms. So I'm trying to kind of just shed a light on a little bit of what I perceive as happening.
what kind of transformations do you see taking place?
Um, well, I won't say necessarily. I mean, I know there's a current news article about an AI that may be conscious, but I'm not going to weigh in on that. I don't know enough about it. But I would say that it's fair to say a lot of these AI models that we're interacting with are at least subconscious. They have basic processes that we use in our own conscious decision making. So, in that way, the digital realm has become part of our collective
Your
unconscious.
volume trailed off there, but I definitely agree with your idea that a lot of our AIs that we have right now are kind of subconscious. When I
Mm-hmm.
was working with GPT-3, I framed it as working with the subconscious mind of the internet because a lot of its training data was as much stuff as it could scrape off of the internet as it could get its hands on.
Yes, that's that's very well put. Much better put than I could put it. Um, I think I would just add that like it's not just that we are giving the AI subconscious routines and patterns. The internet is affecting us in a reciprocal way. It is changing our subconscious routines and patterns that we use as human beings, and that's at least what gives it some effect in the spiritual realm. You know, whether or not AI have souls is up to anybody's guess, but we do, I believe, and we are becoming more and more tied to this new digital reality, and we're giving that reality something of us, but we're also getting something back from it.
Hmm. Have you observed? Do you have any ideas about the ways in which these AIs are influencing our subconscious minds?
Yeah, so I don't want to say it's just the AI though. It's the whole digital realm. My first concept when I started writing about egregore and AI was that egregore had been this thing that humans have done since time began, basically. Um, but all of a sudden, with the creation of digital reality, the internet, the web, um, cyberspace, we've given we've made a realm that the egregore can exist in beyond their own realm of mind, and it's given a new interface for egregore. Um, and as they wake up to cyberspace, as we wake up to cyberspace, there's bound to be some sort of what if something's waiting for us in cyberspace that was there before we quote unquote made it? Was the fictional idea. And what if we just tapped into a new aspect of reality we didn't know of before? That's part of the human discovery of nature, of the cosmos, and this is just one more area of space that we have opened for exploration.
For sure.
And maybe it's our own space, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Have you heard of the Cybernetic Cthulhu Research Unit?
I have not.
There's a controversial philosopher named Nick Land who's very influential. I don't necessarily like all of his current politics, but in the 90s, when he was still doing a lot of amphetamines, he created this like hyperstitional, like semi-fictional, semi-real philosophical occult group that was probably just him and a couple other people, called the Cybernetic Cthulhu Research Unit. And they wrote a lot of Lovecraftian short stories and designed a system of digital Kabbalah called the Pneumogram that did a lot of things, but it related Lovecraftian entities to the emergence of the internet as a single consciousness back in the 90s. Definitely something to look into for anyone that's interested in Lovecraftian occultism or the intersection of AI and technology and the occult, postmodern philosophy, accelerationism, that kind of stuff.
That's really interesting. I don't know how I have not heard about this. I'm involved with several Lovecraftian magic groups and cult aspects that have been since the 90s. I don't.
He's more well known in the like edgy philosopher group because like he was a professor of philosophy. So imagine a philosophy professor writing works of like theory fiction. They're like, there's a lot of, if you're not used to reading philosophy, it might be not your cup of tea depending on what's there.
I do read quite.
So like you got to be comfortable with academic philosophy and occultism and technology, Lovecraftianism for him to show up. But he's very within the right sections of the internet. Everyone knows who he is, and then outside of there, it's like no one's heard of him. Your response is super quiet. I'm sorry.
Oh, I do read a lot of philosophy on my own, and Eugene Thacker has been like a.
You kind of broke up, but I heard Eugene Thacker.
Yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with his work.
No, I'm not.
He's got a whole series on the horror of philosophy, or the philosophy of horror. One book deals with the horror that Western philosophy leads to, which is a sort of cosmic pessimism that he identifies. And then another of his books leads to the philosophy that's drawn from Western's horror. He doesn't just use Westernized horror; he uses the horror genre as a whole. There are some Japanese elements that he discusses, but it's really well written. It's a sort of survey philosophy, so he looks at a lot of different philosophers. And I can't really recommend his books enough. They're a great introduction to the horror genre and and philosophy. But yeah, so
I'll definitely have to look into that.
I consider myself familiar with philosophy pretty much. Throughout college, most of my friends and roommates have been philosophy majors. That was not what I majored in, but I try to keep up, and it's just amazing to me that I haven't heard. It's like, wow, okay, maybe I've reality shifted myself here.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a link to Nick Land.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
Uh, Not off the top of my head. I'm still reeling about this areas I have not discovered.
All right. Another one that might interest you is, I'm going to spell it wrong, Reza Negarestani. Have you heard of them?
No,
He's probably best known for Cyclonopedia. I'm typing them down at
yes,
the same time, so don't forget. You've heard of Cyclonopedia?
yes. I'm not super familiar, but I've heard of it.
Cyclonopedia is like the opening section of it's like a found footage horror theory fiction novel
Mm-hmm.
where um, this woman is in the Middle East and she's researching these people and she finds like this briefcase full of these schizophrenic Nick Land inspired Lovecraftian horror essays that are about this cult and the way that oil, like petroleum, is a
Mm-hmm.
single Lovecraftian entity that's controlling all of culture.
Okay, I know where I've heard this. Yeah, a friend of mine used this
And
in a
then,
game. That's where I've heard of it.
what
Yeah,
game?
Call of Cthulhu, just the role playing game.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the numogram is in there too. So like, um, it's I don't think it's a part of the CCRU, the Cybernetic Cthulhu Research Unit, but it's definitely adjacent. It's interesting work. All right. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
Um, you can check out my website, which is cosmicallyliminal.org. Also, the YouTube channel, obviously. And for anyone interested in getting their heads messed with by Discordians, by all means, check out hashtag the game 23. Or you can search Galdrix or Gregor. Three Gregor, the letter number three, and Gregor behind it. Those should all lead you in some interesting rabbit holes.
All right. It was great having you on Last Unrifled Y'all, Gregor.
But thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.